Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, tonight we're going to talk about a guy named Rooster and emergency preparedness. Now, the first time I ran into Rooster, I want to say he was working with the Cajun Navy after Harvey and Bear Paw Tactical Medical had kind of drafted him. And he was doing relief work there. Good guy. One of those people that always showed up. In the embodiment of Rule 303. He had the means, therefore he had the responsibility, and when something went wrong, he rolled out. He did relief work during Florence. He was active out on the res. Very, very good guy, even though, according to people at Bear Paw, he couldn't wrap a wound for anything. But he was a very, very good guy. We lost him on the 18th. He's gone. I can't think of a more fitting memorial for him than discussing a little bit about emergency preparedness, because everybody needs to know something about it. It doesn't matter if you're a soccer mom or you're an ex-ranger. You need to stay up to date and you need to have your stuff together. Because there are people who will come to help. But the more self-reliant you are, the less stress you're putting on them, because they can focus on those people who could not help themselves. So if you have the ability, you have the means, you have the responsibility to put it together and take care of yourself. So, as more and more people have found out about my background, I'm getting more and more questions related to survival in various situations. I never want this channel to turn into a survivalist channel or an insurgency channel or anything like that. There are channels out there for that. That's not really what I want to do here. However, I will start putting up some videos and not putting them into the news feed, just uploading them, and they won't go out to anybody. And I'll put them in a playlist that covers some basic skills. And then if you're on Facebook, I'll share the playlist every once in a while. And you guys can go through and watch them. But to start off with, because this isn't specialized stuff, this is something everybody needs, we're going to talk about putting together an emergency bag. Everybody needs one. Everybody. Everybody. I can't stress this enough. When people think about this stuff, they think about guys who are preparing for doomsday. Hurricanes, wildfires, earthquakes, blizzards. There's something in your area that can happen very, very quickly that you're going to need to be prepared for. And when I go through this list, it's very simple. It is very, very simple. And most people are like, well, I have all of this stuff. Great, where is it? And then you see them go, it's in my house. Well, this is in the junk drawer. This is in my bathroom. This is great. Get it all together and put it in one spot. Because during an emergency, you're not going to have time to run around and pick everything up. The other question that I've gotten a lot, especially after I did the video on prepacked first aid kits, do prepacked bug out bags exist? Not really. There are companies that make some generic base versions. They're not great. You'll do better putting one together on your own. Now, if you just don't have the time, yes, by all means, order one. Having that is better than having nothing. But you'll be better off putting one together for yourself, because it'll be tailored to your needs. My family, we're talking about an emergency. We're talking about 7 people and 2 dogs, and 3 of the people are under the age of 5. That is, that's probably different than yours. That's why the pre-packed bug out bags aren't such a great idea, because they give you a false sense of security. If I pick up one of those, the supplies, they're not going to last a day. So there's that. And then there are companies who will literally go out and tailor make your bag for you. Problem is, these services are thousands of dollars, and you can put it together yourself for a few $100. And that's getting into that's really putting together a good bag. But the basics, what do you need? A first aid kit, a good one. Okay, not the blue box you pick up at Walmart that says 153 pieces and 148 of them are different size band-aids. If it can be fixed with a band-aid, it probably would have fixed itself on its own. You need a real first aid kit. I will link the video I did on first aid kits and put that in the comments section. Then you also need your meds. If you are on meds of any kind that you have to take regularly, you need a supply of those in this bag because pharmacies aren't going to be open. You know, after Michael here, took weeks before pharmacies really got back up and running. So you need to have a supply of that on hand. Okay, food. Now, when you think emergency and food, you think MREs, meals ready to eat, used by the Army. Do you need those? No, of course not. One, they're pretty expensive. I mean, when you break it down per meal, that gets expensive. Two, they take up a lot of space. That's not what you need. Unless you just happen to have a warehouse you can store them in. Now, most people today like to eat fresh and organic and all of that stuff. It's fantastic. If you have a specialized diet, that's great. But unless you need it to survive, you need to forget about that. Get canned goods, get rice, get things that last a really long time, that are things you wouldn't normally eat, and that they have a long shelf life, because then you can put them in your pantry and they'll stay there because they're not really, you're not going to be like, ooh, I really want to eat that. No, it's just going to hang out. That way you have a backup food supply. And again, you're not looking for the tastiest thing in the world, you're just looking for something that will keep you alive and that is easy to cook. And because you're doing that, you also need a can opener. Water. Unless you know how to distill water and purify water yourself, you need to get some bottled water. You don't have to go crazy with it. A couple of cases that are $3 at Walmart will probably do you, depending on how big your family size is. Now, aside from that, you can also get tablets to purify water. You can get filters, which are really cool, like the Life Straw or the Sawyer. But you need a supply of water because depending on the type of emergency, the water in your house may not be working. Fire, and fire includes a flashlight. Okay. Now, most emergencies, the wood around you is wet. Even if you're in a rural area, pulling up the wood that just got rained on by a hurricane, that's not going to do you much good. It's going to be really hard to burn. So you need some charcoal bags, stuff like that, especially for the first, couple of days. As the wood dries out, you can use that because odds are you will need more. You'll need more than a couple of days worth because it's going to take a while to get the electric back on. And you need to know how to build a fire. You need lighters. You need fire strikers, that type of thing. Matches, waterproof matches would be great. Then you need shelter. You need to assume that the structure you're in is going to be damaged. Okay. Tarps, if you don't want to go out and spend a bunch of money on a tent, tarps or those little mylar, the silver blankets, they're not great, but they work. And that's what you have to focus on. So you need a little bit of 550 cord, a rope. It's thin rope. And then you need a knife. And when I say that, people are like, get a K-bar, get whatever. I will tell you from personal experience, I have a K-bar, I have a Fairburn. After Hurricane Michael, what did I use the most? My Swiss Army knife. You don't necessarily need a fighting knife or a field knife. You need something that'll be able to cut open bags and, stuff like that. Now, that's the basics. That's what you have to survive. Beyond that, there's things that can make it easier. A hatchet, a grill. Things like this make it easier. But these are the items you have to survive. Gather them all up, throw them in a book bag, and put it in your pantry next to the canned goods and the water. Okay. Beyond that, you need an evacuation plan. You need to know where you're going to go, and then you need a backup for that evacuation plan. A lot of times when people put one of these together, they're like, well, I'm going to go over to my Uncle Billy's house, and Uncle Billy is 40 miles away, and the hurricane hits you both. Well, now what are you going to do? You need to have two, heading in two different directions. That's where you need to start at. And once you start, you'll think of other things you need or want, depending on your particular situation. You know, me personally, we have to have dog food on hand because we have dogs. We needed baby formula, things like this. And you have to keep this stuff on hand, and everything is different for every family and every skill set. If you graduated SEER and actually went to the school, you probably don't need as much as the guy who works for Allstate. But you still need to have some of your stuff together. So that's your starting point. And then from there, we're going to put up some videos that will help if you don't know how to build a fire, if you don't know how to rig up a shelter, these types of things. We'll get it all out there. But the key thing here is to remember that emergencies, by their very definition, you don't know they're coming. So get it together. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good night.